What's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today we need to talk about this insane regular season that we're witnessing up to this point. I'm recording and uploading this video on Tuesday, April 9th. There are 5 days left of the regular season. It wraps up on Sunday, April 14th. Pretty much every single game has either 3 or 4 games left to play. There's not a lot of time left. It's kind of crazy when I think about it. Like, doesn't feel like the season started that long ago. However, we're reaching the end, and yet nothing is decided. Typically, at this point in the year, I feel like most people are checked out. They're just waiting for the playoffs, and maybe some of you are, but I've been locked in. Like, it feels like everything could still change, and it can. Like, every single seed pretty much outside of the 1-seeded Boston Celtics could change hands before the end of the season. And it's not just like, you know, the 4 or the 5 seed swapping or a team going from 2 to 3. It's teams that are trying to avoid the play-in tournament, teams that could theoretically fall 4 to 5 spots in the standings if they don't keep it together over these final few games, teams that could rise from a middle-of-the-pack play-in team to a squad that could nearly have home court advantage or even get home court advantage in the first round if they really capitalize and teams ahead of them struggle. Like, there is so much movement that can still happen, and again, we're 5 days away from the season ending. That is something that I don't think I've ever seen before. The closest thing I can think of is last year when on the final day of the regular season, a ton of teams in the West were swapping spots. We weren't really sure who was going to end up where, but even with that, like, some of the top seeds were still locked up. The Eastern Conference, for the most part, wasn't moving at all. This season, it's both conferences, and again, it's a wide variety of things that we could see unfold over the rest of the season. So let's talk about some of the potential outcomes. Like I said, Boston has the 1 seed in the East wrapped up. They have for a while now. They're 15 games ahead of the Bucks. They're locked into that spot, but everything else could shift. Like, the Bucks, even at the 2 spot, who felt like the most natural fit to be that 2 seed all season. They've maintained that spot for a lot of year, and recently it felt like they were kind of getting their act together. But over the last 4 games, or really over the last 10 where they've went 3-7, the Bucks have completely fallen apart. Their last 4 games include losses to the decimated Memphis Grizzlies, the Washington Wizards out of all teams, the Toronto Raptors, who are also decimated at this point, and the Knicks, who have been dealing with a bunch of injuries themselves. Even though they are still good when those injuries are hitting them, that should still be a team that you can at least bounce back against and win. I believe that game was at home. They have now lost 4 games in a row, and they're entering a really tough end to the season where they have to play the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Boston Celtics, and the Orlando Magic twice. And those Magic games in particular are huge because guess who's 1 game now behind the Milwaukee Bucks in the 3 seed and is playing way better than them at this point? It is the Orlando Magic. They were the 2 seed earlier in the season, and it didn't feel like they'd hold on to that. They slipped down to the play-in, and now they're back. They've refound their rhythm, and if they beat the Bucks in those 2 games and at least equal them over the remaining portion of the season, the Magic are going to be the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, and that's mind-blowing. The fact that the Bucks could fall down after everything they've tried to do this season, the way they've tried to fix this thing, they've tried to stop the ship from sinking, it still feels like it's going under, and they could fall way further than 3. Like, the Knicks at the 4 spot, also 1 game back, just got that win over them. They're getting a bit healthier now. OG Anunoby is back. They could theoretically make a run up the standings as well and try and catch the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, their schedule's pretty easy to wrap up. They play the Bulls, the Nets, and the Bulls. They do have the Celtics in the mix there, but those other 3 games should be guaranteed wins pretty much for this Knicks team. I would be surprised if they weren't. So if they get those 3 wins and the Bucks lose a couple of games, like, this Knicks team could jump over them. Same thing with the Cavaliers at the 5 spot, just 1.5 games back of the Bucks. Even the Pacers, who are 2.5 games back, if the Bucks really collapse, they could fall as far as 6 or even 7 if the Sixers continue what they've been doing up, where they've been undefeated since Joel Embiid returned, now on a 5-game win streak. Been looking really good. The Heat are theoretically not even out of the race for a top 3-4 seed because they're only 3 games back of the 3-seeded Magic and Knicks. Like, everybody from Miami down could shift up like 4 or 5 spots, could shift down 4 or 5 spots. Nothing is decided, and a lot of these teams play each other over the end of the regular season. Like, shout out to the schedule makers. They killed it because this is going to be an intense final few days. Even with the Bulls and the Hawks, who not a lot of people are counting on to do anything like over the time in the play-in, not a lot of people expect them to go to the playoffs, but even still, there is still things up for grabs. Like, the Bulls and Hawks are only 1 game separate. The Hawks could theoretically grab the 9 seed back. Those 2 teams have been shifting a little bit, so it truly is everywhere up and down the standings here in this Eastern Conference. The Milwaukee Bucks, again, could theoretically fall to the play-in if they collapse over this final stretch, and they're the 2 seed at the moment. Then we go over to the Western Conference, where at the top, that battle for the 1 seed still rages on. There have been 3 teams that have been fighting for basically the whole season: the Thunder, the Nuggets, and the Timberwolves. Right now, the Wolves are the 1 seed. They've been holding it down for a lot of the season and have maintained that despite the injury to Cat. Anthony Edwards has been huge for them. Naz Reid has been great. Everyone has pretty much stepped up. They're in a tie right now with the Nuggets, but hold the tiebreaker over them. However, those two teams still have one more game left to play. They play in a few days here. That's going to be an amazing matchup, a primetime game that might end up deciding who gets the 1 seed. But the Thunder aren't out of it yet either. They're only 1 game back. They're getting healthier now with Shea coming back tonight after missing 4 games. Jalen Williams has missed 4 games as well. He's not supposed to come back tonight. He's currently questionable, so we'll have to wait and see. But at the very least, he should be back for the next game, so they're getting healthier. And they have a chance to also go ahead and grab that 1 seed. It could end in a 3-way tie. I believe if it does, the Thunder grab that spot. I'm a little bit behind on keeping up with the tiebreakers at the moment, but basically, it's still up for grabs. And the fact that the 1 seed through the 3 seed are still available is crazy this late in the season. Behind them at the 4 and 5 spots, you have the Clippers and Mavericks, who feel like the only teams that are kind of locked into their places right now. The Clippers have kind of lost out on their chance to grab one of the top 3 seeds, and the Mavericks are trying to separate themselves from the teams below them. So it seems destined that we're going to end up with this Clippers-Mavericks first-round series, which is amazing. This is going to be easily one of the most anticipated first-round series out of any of the possible matchups. It's going to be round 3 of Luka and the Mavs versus Kawhi and Paul George and the Clippers, this time with Kyrie and James Harden involved. 2 guys who played together recently in Brooklyn. The storylines are going to be crazy. The Mavericks have been one of the hottest teams in the league. The Clippers have been reeling a little bit, but they still are going to have Kawhi Leonard, who we know is a monster in the playoffs, as well as Luka Doncic. Going to be cinema. I cannot wait for that series, assuming it does happen, and it just seems destined at this point, to be honest. Beyond them, pretty much every seed, like the East, is still up for grabs. At the 6th seed, there are the Phoenix Suns, who are tied with the Pelicans. 1 game back of those teams are the Kings, 1.5 games back are the Lakers, and 3 games back are the Golden State Warriors. They're probably going to end up as the 10 seed just because it's getting late in the season. It's hard for them to catch those squads, although theoretically not so out of it yet, at least to move up to like 8 or 9, because they're only 2 games back of the Kings and only 1.5 games back of the Lakers. Definitely need to capitalize, but it's going to be hard because teams ahead of them are playing well. And speaking of those teams, a lot could shift, especially when you take a look at the schedules involved with these squads. Like the Phoenix Suns, who again are the 6th seed at the moment, have an insane schedule to wrap up. They play the Wolves, the Clippers twice, and the Sacramento Kings, who are trying to fight with them for seeding, so that's absurd. You take a look at a team like Sacramento too. They not only have to play Phoenix, but they have to play Oklahoma City tonight. They have to play the New Orleans Pelicans as well. Those are 3 really tough games. The Lakers have the Warriors, who are again involved with them in the standings, as well as the Pelicans, who they're trying to catch up. That's a massive game for them. The Pelicans play the Lakers, Warriors, and Kings, teams that they're all involved with. Like, everything is tied together at the end point of the season here. Every team is trying to catch each other. Again, so much could still shift. The Lakers are trying to get out of the play-in tournament. They've been trying to claw their way out for so long now. At the very least, avoid this 9-10 matchup with Golden State and instead move to a 7-8 game, which gives them 2 chances to win before making the playoffs. The Suns are trying to stay as far away from that as they can, but again, their schedule is really harder. They're going to be able to stay afloat. The Kings going from a 3 seed to now a play-in team. Could they still find their way up to a 6 seed and avoid the play-in? So much is up for grabs so late here in the season. It's ridiculous. And it's been a lot of fun to follow, especially, again, in these last few days. There are going to be so many games that are going to be played between these teams fighting for seeding. This may be the most dramatic finish to a regular season in the history of the sport. It's been so much fun to follow. And I think one thing we have to give a lot of credit to for doing this is the play-in tournament. It has been a massive home run addition to the season, if you ask me. One of the best changes that Adam Silver or any sports commissioner has ever made to their league. I cannot even think of an NBA without the play-in tournament anymore. It has really energized this end of the season. Like, even though they're out at this point, the pursuit with the Rockets trying to catch up to the Warriors, where they went on that ridiculous streak towards the end of the season, was incredible. It added so much drama, and eventually, again, they did fall out, but they kept it really close for a while, and it gave something to NBA fans to root for over that period of time. Even if their team was out of it, they could still hope that the Rockets would make things really interesting. And still now with the Warriors, after being locked into at least the 10 seed, they're still trying to push their way up to one of those 7 or 8 spots, avoid the worst possible scenario being in the road spot in the 9-10 game in the play-in tournament. No team has ever made the playoffs as a 10 seed, but theoretically, even if they do end up here and say the Lakers hold their spot down, we're going to see a LeBron James, Steph Curry playing game to decide which one of them doesn't make the playoffs. That's special stuff, and it's caused teams like the Phoenix Suns, the Pelicans, the Kings to really have to lock in and try and win as much as possible, because these teams are trying to catch them. They're trying to force them back into that single elimination, have to win 2 games to even make the playoff scenario that they're in at the moment. It's caused teams to have to continuously put their best foot forward. They have to keep their guys out there. They can't rest anybody, because if they do, they're going to fall down into the play-in. Like right now, at the end of the season, there are teams in the Eastern Conference that are trying to avoid being one of those play-in teams, with the Sixers bringing back Embiid. They're still trying to make it further up the standings, when in most seasons they could have theoretically just kept resting him or only brought him back for a couple of games and not tried that hard, because sure, what's really the difference between a 7 or an 8 seed? But now the difference is being the home or away team in a play-in game, or even avoiding it entirely if you end up towards a top 6 seed. The fact that one of those top seeds like the Bucks or the Magic or the Knicks, the Cavs, like all those squads could still theoretically fall into the play-in if they don't capitalize here at the end of the season adds a lot of stakes to their years. It's been a perfect addition. Again, I cannot imagine the season without it. I think it's done so much for these end of regular season moments where most other years we'd kind of just be waiting for the playoffs and it feels like everything's just dragging on. But yeah, I just wanted to hop on here and talk about all the possible scenarios the rest of the way, sharing the excitement surrounding the regular season with y'all. It's been a lot of fun. It's going to continue to be. There is still so much drama to unfold, and this isn't even counting the playoffs. When you take a look at all the teams that are going to be involved, it feels like it could be one of the best playoffs we've seen in a while. Some of the possible matchups are going to be electric. You know that the play-in tournament's going to be special too. Like, again, imagine we get LeBron, Steph Curry this late in their seasons trying to make one final run, and they have to play each other in a 9-10 game to decide who doesn't make the playoffs. It's storybook type of stuff. You know me, I'm going to be making videos leading into the playoffs, making playoff predictions, award video coming up here soon, probably within the next week or so, to just give you my thoughts on all of that, the major awards at the end of the season. Maybe I'll even throw some superlatives in there too. I'll be making videos breaking down and predicting certain playoff series individually. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait for that. Next week is going to be huge for the content. So leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Appreciate y'all watching. Let me know where you think teams are going to end up in the standings. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.